Hi everyone, welcome to today's lecture on refutation. My name is Jonathan Chen and I'll be your speaker today. Before diving into what are refutations, let's first quickly review what an argument is. So the first component of an argument is a claim. So it basically is an assertion that something is true. For example, Captain America is better than Iron Man, or cats are better than dogs would be good examples of a claim. And in order to be backing up these assertions and claims, we would need reasoning, which is basically warrants, which are reasoning and causation for why something is true. So, if we were to make a claim that cats are better than dogs, the warranting would be because cats have sharper claws. If you want more information on warrants, be sure to check out our lecture on warrants. Let's go inside what is a refutation. A refutation is basically a logical response that disproves an argument. Now, how should we be structuring different refutations? So, in order to better the structure of our refutations, we would use something known as the 5-step refutation, which includes first, they say, which is signposting, identifying your opponent's or someone else's argument. The second is however, which is called a counterclaim, which means you're providing another claim that goes against what your opponent or someone else is saying. And then the third is because, which is basically providing a reasoning or warrant for why your counterclaim is true. And then the fourth one is therefore, which is basically you're implicating out why your response matters or why does your response take down your opponent's arguments. And then fifth of all, there's the prefer, which is really the juicy part of a refutation because you're arguing that your counterclaim is ultimately better than your opponent's, and that is why you should be always preferring your own claim. Now, let's take a look at an example. They say that cats are better than dogs. However, this argument is not true because dogs are more loyal to their owners. Therefore, dog owners are typically happier than cat owners. Prefer our response because the amount of joy the pet brings to their owner is the easiest way to determine the better pet. Now, you can see that here, they say that cats are better than dogs. This is the signposting, which is identifying what your opponent is saying. The second, however, this argument is not true. This is providing a counterclaim, saying that this argument is not true. And then, because dogs are more loyal to their owners, this is bringing up a warrant for why your counterclaim of why this argument is not true is true. And then...
What is actually true?
Let's analyze this. So, the first part, they say that cats are better than dogs. This is called signposting, identifying your opponent's claim, which is cats are better than dogs. And then, however, this argument is not true. This is bringing up a counterclaim, saying that your opponent's argument is not true. And then, because dogs are more loyal to their owners, this is the reasoning part, which is why that their argument is not true. And then, therefore, dog owners are typically happier than cat owners. Here, you're implicating out why it's important that dogs are more loyal and how does this interact with your opponent's argument, which is saying that cat owners are usually more happy. And then the last part, which is prefer our response because the amount of joy the pet brings to their owner is the easiest way to determine the better pet. This is the most important part of the argument. You're basically saying that you should prefer your warranting, your reasoning that dogs are more loyal over your opponent's warranting, which is cats are better than dogs, because you provide the further analysis that joy brought to their owners is actually the better way to evaluate which pet is better. Now, after reviewing the different structures of an argument, let's take a look at how are different ways that you can refute an argument. Here's how you don't want to refute an argument.
2 plus 2 is equal to 4.
No, you're wrong. It's 5. First, there are two key ways. The first is a non-unique, which is that arguing that your opponent's argument will happen in a world both of the af and the neg, which is why saying that today's debate will not affect the argument. Here's an example of how you can refute an argument by using the non-unique.
Superman is superior to Batman because he can fly.
Here's an example of how it would look like. Adam tells you Superman is a superior hero because he can fly. However, this argument is non-unique because Batman is very rich and he can also build airplanes, which also gives him aerial talents. And then the second is a D-link, which basically means that you're attacking or taking away the link of your opponent's argument. So basically here, the link would be reasoning of your opponent's argument. And this can happen in a few ways. You can be disproving your opponent's evidence. You can be instead bringing up new reasoning that would take away your opponent's reasoning. I'm getting hiccups. Here's an example of how a D-link refutation would look like.
Batman is superior to Superman because he is stronger.
So, an example of how I can delink this argument is Adam tells you Batman is superior to Superman because he is stronger. However, we can delink this argument by saying that no, this is not true because Superman has superhuman strength. But overall, you're going to be preferring our warrant of this argument because when you saw the movie Superman vs. Batman, Superman basically almost destroyed Batman within seconds of his resurrection because of his superhuman strength. Now, let's take a look at second ways that we can be refuting an argument.
Secondary methods.
Oh, actually that's pretty smart. Now, let's take a look at secondary methods of how you can refute an argument. Now, this method is called the turn, which is basically when you're using your own opponent's logic and argument to attack themselves. Now, this is usually the most preferable response because you're not only making sure that you're defending your opponent's argument, but also you're using their own logic to create offense onto their side. Now, for an example, they say that cats are better than dogs because they have sharper claws to hunt. However, turn their argument because if cats can harm prey with their sharper claws, they can also harm their own owners. Therefore, if a cat harms its own owner, it is not the better pet. Here's an example of a turn refutation.
Batman is powerful because he has advanced airplanes.
So, Adam tells you Batman is a superior hero because he has advanced airplanes. However, this instead will be a weakness because Batman going on a lot of airplanes also means that a crash can easily...
This is too funny.
This is so
It's the worst debate of all time.
Now, here's an example of how a turn refutation would look like. Batman is a superior hero because he has advanced airplanes.
Jonathan says that Batman is powerful because he has advanced airplanes. However, this instead could be a weakness because airplanes can easily crash and kill him.
Now, let's take a look at tertiary methods that we can respond to an argument. This method is called outweigh. So basically, it means that if you were to take your opposing arguments at its highest ground and still explaining why you still win. We have a specific lecture on this about impacts by Adam, and if you want to check it out, it's in here. Now, let's quickly summarize what we have talked about today. A refutation is basically a logical response that disproves an argument. And when you're going to be structuring a refutation, you would normally use the 5-step refutation, which is they say, however, because, therefore, and prefer. And finally, there are different methods in which how you can be responding to an argument. For instance, you can do the non-unique, the delink, the turn, or the outweigh. Thank you for attending today's lecture, and we hope to see you in future videos.